Hello, everybody. Welcome to our daily briefing as we sit here this morning on the 21st of March. Wow, what a set of announcements were made yesterday evening, right? It's taken us a huge amount of time to go through them. We've been digging into the guidance and the detail, and so that we don't just kind of parrot you back the headlines, but we're going a little bit deeper so that we can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how it's actually going to affect your business. And there's basically three things we're going to be talking about in this video. There is the coronavirus job retention scheme. And man, don't they need to come up with some better names for these policies? But the job retention scheme, we're going to talk about that. That's the big one. I mean, that's government support on a scale we've never ever seen before. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the changes to payments for VAT and income tax, because that's probably the one that's going to affect the most amount of businesses outside of the retention scheme, the job retention scheme. And then finally, we're going to talk about some updates to the coronavirus business grant support scheme. I don't know what it's called, the grant bit. We're going to talk about the grants, and there's some more details come out of that today, so we're kind of a little bit closer to understanding who gets that, how you get it, and when it's coming. So we'll talk about that as well. So we will dive right in. I'm going to do it all in one video, so I'm afraid if any bit of that's relevant to you, you're going to have to watch all of it, but do watch it because there's some absolute corking bits of government support in here that we can access. So let's crack on, shall we? What shall we do first? Okay then, let's talk about the coronavirus job retention scheme, which is the unprecedented bit of the announcements that came out this afternoon. Basically, the Chancellor is underwriting salary bills for pretty much the entire workforce in the country, which has never been done before. I can't imagine it will ever happen again. And let's dig into that, because there's some caveats in there. It doesn't apply to everybody. But for those of you that it does apply to, this is absolutely game changing, right? So let's start right at the top. So who's eligible, right? So all UK businesses are eligible. That's in the guidance, first line. So every business that employs staff is eligible for this grant. It is a grant. It's not got to be repaid. It's your money once you get it. And basically, it covers 80% of the salary costs for 3 months of any employee that's furloughed. Yep. Everyone else not sure what that word means or never seen that word before? I've Googled it, so I know what it means now. So this is workers that have been laid off, so they're not working for you. It's not just your regular salary bill to help your cash flow. This is if you've had to close your business or there's not enough work for your employees to do, then you furlough them and basically send them home. And typically this would have been sent home with no pay. Now, you obviously need to make sure your HR contracts and everything, all of that is done properly. So you make sure you speak to a HR professional before you do this. But apparently, it's sort of mandatory in terms of it should be in your contract of employment somewhere. So you furlough your employees, you send them home because there's not enough work for you to do, and then they get 80% of their salary repaid via you, but through the government. And that 80% of their salary applies up to salaries of £37,500. So if your employees earn less than 37.5k in a year, then they're going to get 80% of their salary. And what the HMRC have announced on this, obviously still building a portal behind the scenes, but that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a portal that you can access as an employer next week. You log into that portal. It's separate to the normal HMRC government gateway. Log into the portal. You register the details of your employees that you've furloughed, what their salary payments are, and HMRC are going to refund you that cash. Now, they're also having to rebuild a mechanism to refund you that cash because it doesn't exist at the moment. So whether this comes through in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not sure. I'm slightly concerned that the last line in the guidance about the job retention scheme is that if you're experiencing cash flow difficulties, kind of see the the business interruption loan scheme, which suggests to me that they're not expecting to have any joy rolling this out in the next week or so. So there will be cash coming back for employees, and this is, you can backdate this. So if you had to close your business already, or you've had to lay staff off prior to this announcement this afternoon, you can backdate this grant back to the 1st of March. You can take those employees back onto your payroll. Now, the other thing that it doesn't tell us in the guidance is whether you have to or you need to pay the extra 20% to your salary, so to your staff. So it looks to me, and again, the guidance is changing all the time, but as we stand today, you would receive 80% of their salary and you pay that 80% onto them, but there's no emphasis on you to pay the remaining 20%. I think the government's view is that 80% is better than nothing. So that's where we are today. Obviously, as that portal's built and we get access to it, we will obviously run some test clients through it and see how it works and then report back to you guys. But if you're in a position where you're in a hospitality business or in a retail business or anything that's linked to those trades, or you've just seen your income dive off a cliff and you're having to work out what you can do with your staff, then what you can do is furlough them, send them home, and put them through the portal, and in theory get 80% of their salary reimbursed to you to pay on to them. And like I said right at the start, that's absolutely unprecedented. We've never ever been in a position where HMRC and the government are paying your staff's wages for you. Okay, what are we going to talk about next? Just going to add something on to the job retention scheme section, because it's just occurred to me when I made myself a cup of tea. So I'm not sure, the way the guidance is written at the moment, it's quite loose, and so obviously a massive government policy that's got about 8 lines of guidance for it, so it's going to get tightened up. But the way it reads at the moment, it seems to me, if you're a small business, limited company, where you employ yourself as an employee, so you're doing that typical bit of tax planning and you're paying your director's salary of, I don't know, somewhere between £700 and £900 a month, and then taking the rest out as dividends. The scheme is open to all employers for all employees, so that suggests that catches you. So if you furlough yourself and stop yourself from working, in theory you can claim 80% of the salary that you're going to pay yourself back from the government. Now that seems too good to be true, but it's how the guidance works at the moment. So that might be something that we come back and look at in future briefings, but it may be a little bit of government support to the very smallest businesses, possibly by accident rather than by design. But if you're in one of those really small micro businesses that's running as a company but doesn't apply, doesn't have premises, so doesn't qualify for the actual grant, the business rates relief grant money that's coming in, you may be able to potentially give yourself a pay rise and then claim 80% of it back for the next 3 months. It may be just that it's very late at night now and my brain's gone off on a tangent, but that seems to be how it reads to me. So we'll come back to that in future episodes. Okay. Okay, boys and girls, let's talk now about the changes to VAT and income tax. So we'll start with VAT, and eagle-eyed viewers from yesterday's briefing will remember my prediction that I didn't think you're going to have to be paying your VAT bills for the foreseeable future, and I'm slightly amazed that I'm correct with that. So they've announced today that if you've got a VAT payment due between the 20th of March, so today as I record this, and the 30th of June, so basically February, March, April and potentially May VAT quarter ends, if your VAT return results in a VAT payment due to HMRC, then you do not need to make that payment. You're basically getting an interest-free loan to the value of that VAT payment from HMRC that needs to be repaid by the next fiscal year as HMRC see it, which would be the 5th of April 2021. So that's good news. The reason I think they've done this is because they were granting almost carte blanche time to pay agreements on this VAT payments anyway, and they've wrote 2,000 people into their call centre and they've been absolutely swamped. And I think they just realised that actually if they're going to give away these time to pays anyway, they may as well mandate it and cut the phone calls down so that they can kind of have conversations with taxpayers about the other tax bills that they're struggling with. So that's VAT. So you need to file your VAT returns as normal. And if you're normally due a VAT refund or something's happened in the last quarter that's resulted in a VAT refund for you, that will get paid to you as normal. But if, like the majority of businesses, you have a VAT bill at any point in the next 90 days, then it is being deferred for the best part of a year. And the important thing to note there is it's being deferred, so it's not gone. You're going to need to pay it, so you need to budget for it, but obviously it's a cash flow boost that's well needed at this time for a lot of businesses. So that's VAT. Income tax, so anyone who pays personal tax through the self-assessment scheme, so whether you're a director of a business taking salary and dividends and paying tax that way, or you're a self-employed individual and paying tax on the profits your sole trade or partnership business makes, then you would have already paid your January tax return payments that were due January 2020, hopefully, and you'll know that you've got a payment on account for next year's tax that's due 31st of July. Those payments on account have been bumped down the road to January 2021. So you're not paying that interim payment, you're going to have to pay the whole tax bill in January. Again, it's just there to ease your cash flow whilst these sort of unprecedented times are upon us. So that's VAT and income tax. Now, if you've got PAYE or corporation tax, you are still eligible to put those on time to pay agreements. They are running now as interest free as well. So you can get, so if you've got a corporation tax bill due in the next few months, ring HMRC. Hopefully you won't be on hold as long as people have been the last couple of days, because the record wait time that we've heard about is 4 hours 25 minutes for then a 2-minute phone call to get the time to pay in place for their VAT. We are having anecdotal evidence that if you're getting a time to pay on PAYE or corporation tax, you are having to at least answer some questions as to why you don't have the cash available, which is a sort of step change from where they were yesterday when most people were ringing about VAT and they were just letting everybody palm that off down the road. So that's something to consider. You should still get that time to pay. One thing to note, your accountant can ring that time to pay team for you. We can negotiate the time to pay, and then you just need to ring HMRC to kind of ratify what we've agreed. So that will get you out of the tricky conversations. The main issue there is that we obviously have to wait on hold for hours to get there. We can negotiate, and then you have to wait for hours to get back there to then agree what we've agreed. So it's a bit of a kind of time sink, but we're willing and able to do it. And you should think carefully about whether using the Bank of HMRC is a good way for you to kind of free up cash flow for the next sort of 3 or 4 months. Okay, so that's the changes to tax as they were today. Let's move on to the next subject. Okay then, let's talk about some of the updates to the cash grants that we talked about yesterday. So these are the grants that are linked to business rates. 2 things have become clearer since we spoke with you yesterday. So firstly, businesses that receive small business rates relief. So these are businesses in premises with a rateable value of less than £15,000. We know that you're getting a grant of £10,000. We now know that you don't have to fill out any forms, that it's just being issued to you directly by local authority based on their list of businesses that are eligible. So that's good news. Again, my concern is that it's coming through the post and everyone is working from home. So whether you'll see that, it might be worth nipping into the office here and there just to check your post. But one of the things we spoke about yesterday is the position of business owners that occupy serviced offices. So if you're in a serviced office like mine at Pure Offices on the Business Park, we have to complete our own small business rates relief kind of documentation. So we got sent a rates bill. We had to fill out the form as to why we're eligible for small business rates relief. And now that we are, we're going to get that £10,000 grant. So that's great. But obviously a lot of you are not in Pure Offices. You may be in either the Clarendon Business Centres or a Regis site or one of the other providers. And you may not have, they may not treat the business rates system the same as Pure Offices do. So we sent a few of you off to speak to your landlords to see if they would let you know whether, I couldn't imagine that they were taking the hit on the entire business rates for the whole building and not passing it on to their residents somehow. And I thought maybe they kind of fill the paperwork out for you and just deal with it and you never see it. And we've had a conversation with a tenant in Clarendon who's kind of got pretty much confirmation from them that they are kind of applying for small business rates relief on behalf of their tenants. And if that's the case, then potentially if you're in a Clarendon business centre, then you need to speak to your landlord, but it looks like they at least are kind of making you eligible for small business rates relief. So that's good. You should. It doesn't matter whether you're in a sort of 40-foot square office there. If you're in an office and it's treated as a separate premises for by the local authority, then you will get this £10,000 grant. And if you're in somewhere like Regis or somewhere else, I suggest you speak to them ASAP to find out what the situation is with small business rates relief. So that's the smaller businesses. We also spoke yesterday about the bigger businesses that are retail, hospitality, and leisure businesses that you've got rateable value between 15,000 and 50,000. So if you're any of those types of businesses and your rateable value is less than 15, you're going to get a £10,000 grant. But if you're in those industries and your rateable value is more than that, which most kind of single site pubs, restaurants are going to be comfortably within that bracket. So if you're in that bracket, we knew yesterday you were going to get a grant of up to £25,000. And we were waiting to see what kind of calculation they were going to put in place so that we could understand how much of that grant you were going to get. Having read the guidance today, it's been updated ever so slightly, but it's quite an important one. So basically now what they're saying is if you're in that rateable value, you get a grant of £25,000, which is a very small change to the wording, but it's a huge change in terms of physical money that's going to be paid. So as I read the guidance this evening, if you're a pub, hotel, gym, any kind of retail, hospitality or leisure business that's paying rates, then you're going to get a £25,000 grant. And as with the £10,000 grants, you don't have to do anything about this. The details are all held with the local authority and they will be writing to you with regards to how you can access that money. And the Chancellor promised that will be here in weeks rather than months, and certainly by the end of April. So that's where we are with the grants as of today. There is a lot of noise in the press now. They think they've cottoned on to the fact that a huge amount of small businesses don't pay rates of any kind. And so we'll wait to see if there's further measures next week. But it's good news for businesses with premises. Okay guys, that's probably enough for now. I think we're going to probably end up at about 20 minutes or so on this video. So if any of the things we've talked about today are piquing your interest, or you're still concerned about your cash flow, or you want to give us a call to talk through your plan and how you're going to deal with the times that we're in, we are still clearing our diaries in order to speak to business owners. So just pick up the phone. You've got my number in the WhatsApp group. Don't be shy. Give us a call. And let's see if we can make sure that every business that's in this group is still going by the time I close it down gladly in the middle of the summer and go on holiday somewhere nice and sunny. Cheers, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll be back on Monday unless anything major is announced in the meantime. Cheers.